Good morning. Thank you for attending the BC Road Builders and Heavy Construction Association's annual general meeting. And thank you for your continuing support while we navigate through the pandemic. It is our industry that has led our economy through these uncertain times. While doing so, we have kept our workforce safe through implementation of superior safety protocols. We are fortunate to live in a province so vast and rich with resource and opportunity. It is these resources that have been the catalyst of our economy for generations and have provided opportunity for our industry and businesses to thrive. Unfortunately, not all British Columbians have had the same opportunities to participate in them and benefit from them. Since the early settlers arrived over 200 years ago, British Columbia's Indigenous people have been denied access and opportunity to prosper from these resources. The BC Road Builders recognize the importance of reconciliation and are committed to helping build capacity for the Indigenous community to participate in and benefit from our industry's opportunities. In 2020, as part of its strategic plan, the Board of Directors implemented the Indigenous Engagement and Relations Committee. Having had the pleasure to work with a number of First Nations communities throughout the province, I am honored to be appointed chair of this committee. BC is the first province in Canada to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, also known as UNREP. The UNREP is anchored in the complementary human rights of equality and self-determination. It is not privileging First Nations people with a set of rights unique to them, nor in opposition to non-Indigenous people. Rather, it seeks to ensure that all First Nations enjoy and benefit from the same human rights that non-Indigenous peoples benefit from. Its purpose is to remedy the historical denial of the right of self-determination and related human rights, so that Indigenous people may overcome systematic disadvantages and achieve a position of equality. The BC Road Builders and our members are proud to embrace UNREP. To date, we have led all industries in fulfilling the commitment to it. It is the responsibility of all of us. There are still many questions surrounding what UNREP means to British Columbians, the construction industry as a whole, and members of the BC Road Builders in particular have been working with First Nations to identify what it means to them. We ask how we can help address the challenges they face. We have done this by building solid, trusting relationships with Indigenous communities and have embraced the culture and values that are important to them. Collaboratively, we have created opportunities for employment, training, and partnering on many projects throughout the province, both large and small. Although we have taken steps towards reconciliation, there is still lots of work to do in order to achieve the equality that First Nations and their members deserve. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission call to action relating to business includes 3 recommendations: meaningful consultation and building relationships with First Nations, equitable access to jobs, training, and education to Indigenous people, and education of management and staff on Indigenous history and our responsibility relating to UNREP. Based on these statements, and as a starting point, the Board of Directors have identified 5 key action items. First and foremost, we must embrace the cultures of the Indigenous people. British Columbia is home to 1/3 of all of Canada's First Nations. Approximately 198 First Nations, each with their own unique histories, traditions, and rich culture. As a prominent leader in the Indigenous community said to fellow board member Joe Robo, "Don't talk to us to get to know us. Rather, get to know us so we can talk." We take this to mean that is the first step in Indigenous engagement. We must earn the trust and respect of First Nations and their members before we can move forward with reconciliation. We are committed to holding Indigenous awareness meetings, which will include Indigenous leaders, various government representatives, and members of the BC Road Builders. We anticipated having commenced these sessions by now. However, the restrictions surrounding the pandemic have made it difficult to have these groups come together. We feel it is important to meet in person and look forward to a time in the near future where we can meet and collaborate in person. Second, as an association, our goal is to increase the number of First Nations business and size of our Indigenous workforce. As a starting point, we are aiming to identify how many Indigenous people and businesses we currently have in our membership companies. This will give us a baseline of how our industry is currently doing and how much work we need to do. We will communicate these findings to government and industry and work together to develop methods to increase opportunities for Indigenous people and their participation in them. We will continue to bring together Indigenous leaders from throughout the province, local and provincial governments, and industry to identify and implement ways to ensure we create more opportunity for Aboriginal-owned businesses, along with training and employment opportunities for their members. Third, and as a result of the previously mentioned initiative, we will identify and ask an Indigenous member to join our board of directors. We feel it necessary that the Indigenous community has a voice at the table to help move these initiatives forward in a positive direction. Next, we are finding ways to increase the total value of contracts awarded to First Nations-owned businesses. We will continue to work together with First Nations leaders from throughout the province, along with the many stakeholders who drive our industry, to provide opportunity for Indigenous business. To date, each of these stakeholders has taken a widely varied approach to First Nations procurement, creating inconsistency in the tendering and procurement process. Some are leading the way with solid procurement policies and criteria for Indigenous inclusion, and some not at all. Our goal is to achieve consistency in fair and transparent tendering throughout all jurisdictions. Finally, we are committed to supporting the government's goal of UNREP. To support these goals, we are meeting regularly with stakeholders such as the Port Authority, BC Hydro, the Ministry of Transportation, and municipalities from throughout the province. We meet to discuss how they can help in building capacity and provide opportunities for First Nations. We had a recent meeting with MOTI in which they committed to putting forth a mandate letter with an emphasis on Indigenous relations and a commitment to the UNREP legislation. We can expect this mandate to be communicated in more detail by the end of the first quarter in 2021. Our expectation is that these details will help us develop a clear and concise plan for our governments to achieve these goals and what that means for our industry. Repairing the nearly 200 years of undoing will not happen overnight, but together we can make great strides in bringing prosperity and equality to the Indigenous community for all future generations. Thank you.